How big of a role would Zach Hyman have played? I would look at that loss being as big as the goaltending difference in this series.
All right, they call this next guest the James Lipton of hockey because while you may enjoy yourself some inside the actor's studio, there's nothing like inside the coach's room. Let's bring on James Lipton. Hi, Petey.
Oh, that's high praise, by the way, the James Lipton praise. Obscure reference for the Chaos
James Lipton.
Family, but I like it.
Following up an obscure reference with a massively more obscure reference is unbelievable.
What happens tonight, Petey?
I would be concerned if you're the Edmonton Oilers. I think this is going to be a good night for the Florida Panthers. Now there are caveats, and the biggest one you've already mentioned in the show today is Connor McDavid, and he can do this by himself, and he might need to. And this team needs to be better than they were in Game 5. There were so many disappointing aspects to the Edmonton Oilers game in Game 5 at home, and what you might think is a must-win. But they can win this game. Skinner's going to have to be better, and McDavid's going to have to be the best player on the ice.
How do the Oilers get to the front of the net? Because they did not get to the front of the net against Florida in Game 5.
One of the ways, and the best way for Edmonton, and this has been throughout this entire playoffs, their ability to generate offenses through their movement. And unfortunately, they're only getting that active. We call it being active. You think of McDavid along the wall, and it goes towards the blue line. And then the defenseman that was at the blue line either walks the line or goes through the middle. That's being active, where everybody's moving around. That's the way you generate space against a team that defends man on man, like the Florida Panthers, because they're going to climb all the way to the defense, or excuse me, the defense will climb all the way to the blue line with Connor McDavid, and you end up with a forward in front of the net. And that's the best way to start generating some open space in behind in that slot area. The problem for the Edmonton Oilers in Game 5 is they didn't get offensive zone time and offensive zone puck possession. So until you get possession, you can't be active and create that movement. Their biggest problem is they didn't get the puck, and they couldn't get the puck in the offensive zone. That's first. They've got to get the puck first before they can try to get to the front of the net.
You talked about Skinner being better, and I thought that Jeff Skinner was really good in Game 4 personally, and just no one was really going in Game
Jeff Skinner was great. Stu Skinner, thanks.
Yeah, Jeff Skinner, no problem. But I'm going to change the subject to Stu Skinner, if that's all right with you. Am I being a hater when I said what I said earlier, which was rewatch some of those goals, and if everything plays out, that's a different game in Game 5 if Stu's in net. Pickard did not have a good game.
The reality is you're right. And here's what I've said about Pickard all along. And I said when he first went into the first series against LA, Pickard is a backup goalie in the National Hockey League. He has been his entire career. That's what he is. And eventually he's going to come back down to earth and be who Pickard is. And it just, unfortunately for the Oilers, he couldn't make that last for 2 or 3 more games. That was not a great performance. I thought his feet were moving. I thought he was sliding out of the crease. I think he was out too far on the Bennett goal off the rebound off of Tkachuk. He wasn't sharp. I think the Marchand goal, the first one flips over his shoulder and he's still moving out of the crease. The third one on the Marchand goal, with Perry, there's nowhere to go for Marchand. Just cover the bottom third of the net, get your stick down tight, get your pads down tight, and that one doesn't go in. I don't think Pickard was sharp. But having said that, that's who Pickard is. And we said if the Edmonton Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup, it's going to be with Stu Skinner. It is. And unfortunately, and I know you're really not going to like this, DJ, I don't love Stu Skinner. I like him. And I think when he's good, he's good. But when he's bad, he's bad. He's not consistent enough to be a guy that I go, oh, gosh, I'm going to take to the promised land with Stu Skinner. Because if you switch these goalies right now, if you have the opportunity as an Edmonton Oilers fan saying, we get Bobrovsky in Game 1 and we get him for the series, this series might be over. And that's how important the goaltender is. And I still get frustrated when the Edmonton Oilers don't go out and go, we've got McDavid, we've got Draisaitl, we've got depth, we can defend. God, we need a 1A that can be a monster. I don't revisionist history. I'd have to go back and see who that was. That disappoints me. We knew it. We said it on this show. I think now you're going, gosh, if we had just a little bit better goaltending, man, we might be up 3-2, or this might be over. The window's so short. You got to make those decisions, and I know they're hard. I think I would be disappointed as an Oilers fan right now.
It's interesting you say that because I was thinking if the Oilers lose this series, everybody is going to go back to the goaltending thing and say that the reason that they didn't win over the last 2 years is because they didn't have as good a goaltending as the other side, and to a certain extent, I think that's true. But when DJ's talking
this
about
year. Not last year, but go on.
Yeah. No, I don't even know I guess I don't subscribe to it being a massive story in this Cup final. I think it's more the instability factor than the goaltending itself. Like when you talk about the Pickard performance and like it would have looked different if Stuart Skinner was in the net, like I don't know if I believe that just based off of how drastically
they don't win
Edmonton
that
was
game.
outplayed.
They don't win that
period
game.
Across the board. So
Okay.
like I feel like goaltending has been less of a story in this series than I expected it to be in terms of like the actual play being lopsided between the goaltenders. Do you think it's fair that after if the Oilers lose here, people are going to look back and say, well, the reason they didn't win the Stanley Cup is because they didn't have better goaltending? Do you think that's fair?
I don't think it's fair. Having said that, you're right. If Skinner plays in that game, they're still losing. Like they had 3 shots in the first period at home in a must-win game. That's not good enough. They couldn't get a stop on a forecheck for the entire game. They couldn't get through the neutral zone unless it was off a defensive zone turnover off the blue line. They didn't generate. They weren't good enough offensively. They weren't going to win. So goaltending doesn't make a difference there. The problem with their goaltending, it's always that one goal or 2 goals per game. It's 3 or more in 5 straight for Skinner. It's not good enough. And again, I go back to, Bobrovsky, the first 5 minutes of game 5, first 5 minutes of that game, the Oilers had the 3 best chances. Brown had 2 and McDavid has 1 that Ekblad blocks. Edmonton easily with the 2 Brown chances, the one off the rush and the one coming out of the corner on McDavid's forecheck. They could be up 1-0, but they're not. Because Bobrovsky makes the big save at the right time and no one even really goes back and goes, oh, Bob was Bob. But then goes the other end and Pickard gets up a weak one and it's over. So goaltending is incredibly important. You can still win with a good goaltender. We've talked about that. I think Darcy Kemper was a good goaltender. Antiniemi was a good goaltender. I think there were good goaltenders that have won cups. And I thought Edmonton could win it with good goaltending because they were defending so well and they were scoring. The difference is the scoring has dried up. I think they're still defending relatively good. I think they're taking the middle of the ice, and I think they're stopping them off the rush. The problem is there's no offense. And now that could break through tonight. They could have an 8-1 game tonight. They could. But the difference that even Mike Ryan said before this was Hyman. How big of a role would Zach Hyman have played? I would look at that loss being as big as the goaltending difference in this series. What would have Zach Hyman provided along the walls, in front of the net, on the power play? All of the areas that would help, not just defensively, but in the offensive side of the puck.
Yeah, I mean, the Marchand addition has been obviously massive from last year to this year, but it really is the double whammy of they have Marchand and you don't have Zach Hyman. And look, like if the Panthers win this series, that's an if. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but like I'm not going to. My feelings are going to be hurt, and I'm going to be sad, but I'm not going to be offended that the Florida Panthers in this roster won another Stanley Cup. Even if the Oilers weren't in it, like when they get Seth Jones, you're like, damn. Well, they're primed for a run here. So I agree that it's going to feel annoying when this gets reduced to goaltending, no matter how it ends, because I think that both of these teams are awesome, and whichever one wins, you're going to be like, that was a fucking Stanley Cup champion. And if it happens to be the one that doesn't have John Klingberg and Troy Stecher going in and out of the lineup, can you really be like, wow, how did that, like, how did the Panthers win? Like, no, they're fucking awesome.
Yeah, and like I've talked about stability so much this week, but like, how often do we monitor the lines for the Edmonton Oilers? Because the lines change every goddamn game. They really do. And to me, like, nobody gives a shit about the Florida Panthers lines because you know what you're going to get. You know what they're going to roll out. You know what their team is going to be on any given night. The Oilers don't have that. And yeah, they've had these runs where they've been so dominant with even with these different kinds of lines. But it's the instability factor that to me is going to linger if Edmonton loses this series, where it's just they didn't have the same sort of business as usual heading to the rink, knowing what they're going to be, knowing what it's going to look like, knowing who's going to be in net. Do you agree with that?
100%. And it's one of the things that makes them who they are. And I think they flipped a switch when the playoffs started. I honestly don't think they were very good the last 20 games of the regular season. I think they were injured. I think they didn't get a chance to play together. There was no chemistry. They weren't good. And then the playoffs start and they just go, okay, we got this. We know how to play. We're just going to play the exact same way every night. You guys figure it out. We're not changing. This is how we're going to play. If you think you can beat us, good luck. And I think for the Edmonton Oilers, it's, hey, we got to keep juggling lines. We got to keep mixing up our systems. Tonight we're going to try entries. Tomorrow we're going to dump the puck in. Like, I do think it forces your opponent to try different things to try to beat the Florida Panthers. And DJ said something interesting in the last interview. He said, do you think they feel like they have to win this game because they don't want to go back to Edmonton? I don't think that matters. I don't think if they lose tonight 6-1, I really don't think Paul Maurice is going to go in there with hair on fire going, oh, we're in trouble. It's okay. We got this. Well, we got it in game 7. And I believe that the room believes that. I mean, clearly they don't want to make the trip back. You guys have made that trip from Florida to Edmonton. It stinks. You don't want to do it. So I think there's an added benefit to not making that trip. But I don't think it scares them. I don't think there's that pressure. And they've won the cup. So I agree when you said the cup's in the building and that changes things. I do believe that. And we saw it with we've seen it with Colorado Avalanche, and you see that. But I don't think you see it with Florida. Edmonton's going to have to be special. Edmonton evolved this entire playoffs from LA all the way through to Dallas. They became a better team. I don't think they were great against LA. I don't think they defended very well. I don't think they defended the rush well. But as the playoffs went on, you go, gosh, this team is good. And they can defend. And they became this in the mythos of, hey, we're a really good hockey team here. They grew into that over time. Florida had that from day one. So when you look back now, we've played 5 games, 3 in overtime. This has been a great Stanley Cup final. Don't kid yourself. This has been fantastic hockey and absolutely can go either way tonight. I would not surprise me for 1 second if Edmond comes out of there with a 2-goal win on an empty netter. Wouldn't surprise me. I think if they're going to do that, it's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't think it's 6-3, but we'll have to see what happens tonight.
The thing on they're not concerned if they have to go back there, I completely agree, and I know that everyone here does just because they've been that good of a road team, but I'm going to always go back to that clip in the Amazon docuseries that is now in a commercial where Paul Maurice is yelling like, so in game 7, they've got nothing left. The full clip of that is he says to his bench, and I'm only lightly paraphrasing, but he's like, you fucking guys, you take a 3-1 lead and you take a 3-1 series lead and now you're trying to make plays. Fuck the plays, pound their D, so when we get to game 7, they've got nothing left. This guy is up 3-1 in a series, playing game 5 at home with the opportunity to close out the series, and he is yelling to his team about being ill-prepared for game 7. So, like, ask that guy how concerned he is about having to play in a game 7. He's yelling at his team that they're not preparing for a game 7 with a 3-1 lead well enough. Like that. Do you think other coaches would have that mindset? Because it blows my mind.
I don't know. He's an exceptional person and an exceptional coach. I mean, you look at his top 5 in total wins and games coached behind the bench, and I'm sure he's evolved. And one of the advantages he has over Knoblauch is his experience and his ability to be in situations that Chris Knoblauch hasn't been in yet. He's still too new, and I think that does give the check mark to Maurice. But he's evolved. Coaches can't be just one way anymore in the National Hockey League. And I think he's become more of a player's coach. And when you become more of a player's coach, they want to play for you. And I don't think he has been that throughout his career. I want to play for Paul Maurice. I do. Like, I'm ready. Let's go run through a wall. And you see it in their players. We just play this way. We trust our coach. We trust our system. Just get on our engine, get on the tracks, and just go play. And just play our way. If we do our play consistently over 60 minutes, we're going to win most games. And that is so hard for an opponent to go, I look over my shoulder, I know there's going to be a Panther there. I know there's going to be a Panther there. No matter how I play, if we chip it, if we dump it, if we hard rim it, if we carry it, there's going to be a Panther there. And I do think it's psychological over that 5, 6, 7 game series. I think the Oilers find themselves in a really tough spot going into Florida. If they are to win, the only way they do it is Connor McDavid, because he is that good. And I think he can single-handedly turn the tide of this game. That doesn't mean he gets 3 goals. It could be 4 assists, but he single-handedly has to be the guy. You're going to see him playing nearly 30 minutes tonight, because if they get behind, you're going to see he's going to be every other shift for the remainder of the game, because there is nothing left. And he will play until he cannot play anymore. This is going to be a fantastic game. I can't wait to see the way Game 6 unfolds.
Okay, I've got like an 18-parter. One, are you surprised, or would you, Would you play Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid together, or is that just a non-starter against a team this deep?
You don't do it to start. You're going to have to do it throughout the night. And I think your ability to sprinkle that in, and I don't think you wait till the third period. I think there are times in every period in this game where you put those two together. And I'm talking, you play your lines 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. McDavid, Draisaitl, 1, 2, 3, and so you're playing your top 9 more. But then that last opportunity, you're seeing McDavid and Draisaitl getting an opportunity to play with that fourth line. I think they have to play together, and I think they have to play together once every 5 rotations. And I think you do that for the entirety of the game. Because things happen, special things happen when they're iced together. And you can trust them. They can play 22, 25, 27 minutes and still have the ability to get back and defend. I think you're going to see them together right away towards halfway through the first period. Don't be surprised you start seeing those two out there, at least 1 or 2 shifts per period. And the third, if they're down, they're out every third shift together the rest of the way.
Okay, how do they score on the power play? And I honestly want to make that more a Panthers question, because what are the Panthers doing? Why are they so unbelievable on the kill?
The one of the things the Panthers do, when you're killing a penalty, it's called one go, all go. And I think when Carolina is very aggressive, but you saw oftentimes one player would go, they'd make a pass, and then they back off. With the Florida Panthers, you have the puck, you make a pass, and they're jumping. You make another pass, they're jumping. Everybody is consistently moving, which doesn't give you time to set up. So for the Edmonton Oilers, the only way you can alleviate that pressure is you got to get the puck to where the players are not. And so that means you've got to get it to the weak side of the ice. So you've got to get the puck hard rim all the way around. The problem with that is you need to have the players on the other side of the ice ready, because they're drifting to the middle of the ice trying to make a play to the bumper or the inside. So if I'm the Edmonton Oilers right now, I'm thinking we get the puck in, and once we get the puck in, every time it goes back to the point, it's instead of on net, it's a hard rim all the way around the wall, and that weak side winger is going to be ready for it. And you do that 2 or 3 times in the same power play, you tire out the penalty killers. That's hard. That is so hard to go side to side to side to side. And now you start to shrink that box. And when you shrink the box, now you can get shots. Now let's get the puck back to Bouchard at the top of the slot, and let's just let it go. And I think once you start doing that, now you're going to open up more space for Draisaitl and McDavid. So first of all, you got to get to the weak side. Second of all, you got to get shots on net. And that will start to shrink that box. And when you shrink the box, you're going to get more room for those other 2 guys.
You done with all your parts?
I mean, I do have more parts, but I would give you the opportunity if you have anything else.
No, I'll get to it after you're done, because I have a thought based off of something that came up earlier.
Okay, how likely is it that the Oilers actually will have a good start, and what goes into that?
That's a good question.
It's a really good question.
I have like a lot of fucking parts right now.
But don't you say that all the time, though?
IF, internal family system.
How many times, and you guys haven't seen this, but every coach's speech in every playoff game that I've ever been around, hasn't been all that many, because Arizona wasn't, we know what they were. But every coach always says, hey, let's start on time. Hey, let's start on time. Hey, let's start on time. You can't just say the words. You have to do the actions. And you know who was ready last game? Was Brad Marchand. And you look at the difference in his ability to jump off the faceoff, and people are, he cheated. No, he didn't. He didn't cheat. And I went back, trust me, I went frame by frame to see if the puck
Panthers
hit the ice
never
before he crossed the circle. Dude, well, they do a lot.
Dude, when the puck hit the when the puck hit the ice,
yes,
he was like
3 feet past. For sure.
You can let it happen once. You can't let it happen twice. They let it happen twice.
Right.
In that
game.
And that's why, so the first one you go, oh my gosh, he got through quick, and Ekholm usually plays the left off the faceoff. He was on the right, so he's having a difficulty moving to the middle of the ice. He doesn't do it all the time, but he does some of the time. But on that second one, that's a D zone faceoff, buddy. Edmonton's in the offensive zone. Like, come on. You just had it happen before. So those little details are the cues to people on the bench and in the stands to go, man, they're not ready. And this means playing the little details. The little details of this game are they make the difference. If you ice the puck, that faceoff now takes place in an area where you're not ready. And it's funny, that Marchand goal came off of a Florida Panther icing. That line wants to change. They want to get off the ice. And so for the Edmonton Oilers, we gotta get them. We gotta hem them into the offensive zone. We gotta pound them. We gotta win this faceoff. That's got to be your mindset. And they let them off the hook, not just for getting a change. They give up a goal. And off that opening faceoff, Edmonton's got to have a plan. They've got to do better at getting offensive zone time. So for me, the cue is going to be Edmonton wins the opening faceoff over the red line, and they pound it and they go get it. And they don't just retrieve the puck. They're physical. They're hard on the Florida Panthers defense, and they get a shot on goal. They don't need to score. That they would like to, but they don't need to. They need to, off the opening faceoff, get a successful forecheck to create a turnover and get a shot on net. And in that first 10 to 12 seconds, Florida's been on their heels for the only 12 seconds, and they go, okay, we're in a game. And I think Edmonton needs to say that. And I know it's only 12 seconds, and I know it's not that important in the whole scheme of the game, but that's how important that start is for Edmonton. They have to come away with the first 10 minutes even or better. They have to. If they find themselves down 10 minutes into this one, they're going to be in trouble trying to find their way back in.
Too much chasing. Part of the reason why I feel like Florida is such a good playoff team is part of the reason why I think this series is going to still go 7 games. And it's because I feel like the Panthers are so sadistic that winning in 7 on the road would feed them more than winning 6 at home. And I don't think that they're like consciously thinking this way, but I do think there's an element, and it goes back to the Paul Maurice thing about, beat him in 7 when you're in the middle of game 5. Like,
and you're playing the fucking Bruins respectfully.
And how they play is like they derive so much fucking pleasure from being miserable to play against, whether it's physically, whether it's forcing you out of the dirty areas of the ice in front of the net, whether it's, laying it on offensively. Any way that they can make you absolutely miserable, they get off from that. And a little extra gas for Edmonton, and then going home, having a game 7 on home ice, and Florida being such a good road team, I can't get that out of my mind. I just feel like the sadistic element of the Florida Panthers is lends to winning in 7 here.
I agree, and it's funny you bring up those stats on the home games and road games. Florida's been bad; they're 2-3 in their last 5. Edmonton is 7-2 in their last road games. It's with Florida. Florida reminds me of those New England Patriot teams that you can be behind by 30 at the half, and we're the New England Patriots. We're going to win the game. Like, we know we're going to win because we're New England. Florida has that swagger. They have that confidence, and they have that belief in their room that it doesn't matter. We're Florida. And in hockey, you don't see that as often because of the parity and teams, ebbs and flows and the free agency and the cap and guys move around. So I don't think you get those. Those windows are very fleeting when you go, we are this team. We are this team. And the Florida Panthers are that team. And it's been a long time. I think like Tampa was a good team, but Tampa wasn't this. Tampa wasn't what these guys are. I think Colorado probably could have been that. They just were unfortunate in the timing of COVID and all of those things. But Florida is that. Everybody in that locker room believes when they hit the ice, we are the Florida Panthers and we are going to win. We're going to play this way. We're going to play that way for 60 minutes and we will beat you. And I don't know how you overcome that. That's hard to do. And even when they make mistakes, and they do, they're over aggressive on pucks through the neutral, and they give up chances off of the rush, and they sit in the penalty box at times because they're walking the fine line. They have Bobrovsky, and Bobrovsky might give up 3, but you'll win. He might give up 5 and you win 6-5. The difference with Bobrovsky, he makes those saves that he absolutely needs to make at the most critical times of the game. And again, I said it yesterday, the first 5 minutes of the game, Edmonton could have a 1-0 lead, but they don't. We have Bobrovsky holds onto the post physically, the ball cuts across, and you go, oh my, that was impressive. That's the difference. The swagger, the confidence, and a goalie that can win a game by himself. I think Florida wins the cup now. I had Edmonton early in this series. I don't know how Edmonton can beat that team twice.
All right, you heard it from Steve Peters. Oilers in 7, he says. You can check him out on Inside the Coach's Room YouTube. It's a growing YouTube page, and it's very, very good, my friend. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on, guys. Well, hopefully we see you before Game 7.
Yes, we will talk before Game 7, although PD seems to have his mind made up for Edmonton, but it's just one man's opinion. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
We all silly like the mayor.